Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be doing my September reading wrap-up. So if we were just going on pages alone, it would appear as though September was a slower month for me. My page total was about 1,900 pages. That being said, I started 6 books and completed 5 of them. One of them was unfortunately a DNF, so I guess it was just kind of a case of shorter length books. Ratings-wise, I would say it's a little all over the place for me. There was, of course, the DNF. I also gave 1 3-star, 2 3.5 stars, a 4-star, and a 4.5 star. So I feel like overall, that points to a pretty good reading month. I also managed to make time this month to participate in the buzzword challenge, which I believe September's prompt was game words, which I'll put my card up here so you can see all the prompts, everything that I've selected so far this year for that challenge. Because I was able to get around to a book for that challenge, it made me feel nice and productive. So as usual, I think I will talk about these books in the order that I enjoyed them in, starting with the book that I like the least and working up to the book that I like the most. That way we can end on a high note. So let's just jump right in and talk about everything that I read in the month of September. All right, so the book at the bottom of the list for me, the book that I DNF'd, and I really hate to say this, it was Ungodly by Braden Riddick. The reason I hate to say that is that I know that this is actually a very well-loved book. It has high ratings. Friends that I have on BookTube really like this. Everyone seems to enjoy this book. I feel like I was reading a different book from everyone else. Also, this is an independently published novel. I actually left my rating on Goodreads blank because I don't want a low rating from me to negatively impact an indie author. So this story is set in I think a kind of a college, like a mountain college town. I'm not even sure that I totally fully understood what was going on in this book, although I did DNF it near 75%. But there is some sort of strange phenomenon happening in this town. The characters in this book are being almost infected with these strange visions and hallucinations that is kind of one by one sort of turning them evil, I guess. And there's like 1 or 2 characters who this hasn't happened to, and I think they're kind of maybe trying to figure it out. I don't know. I think that's part of the reason that this didn't really work for me. It kind of meandered a little bit and I wasn't really sure where it was going. Maybe because this is this author's first novel, it was just his writing style was a little green for me. Perhaps in subsequent novels I might like his writing better, but in here it didn't much work for me. And also the characters were a little bit stereotypical. I had a hard time getting behind any of them, even the protagonist. I don't have to like characters, but if there's really no one that I feel like I can root for, it's hard for me to feel like I can get invested at all. So that was kind of a little bit of a problem for me. I don't know, this one just didn't work for me. So unfortunately, Ungodly for me was a DNF. All right, next up we have A Separate Peace by John Knowles. And though this is close to the bottom of the list, I did still really enjoy this book. So this story follows a character who is basically going back to visit this prep school that he went to. He's just kind of reminiscing on his time there with his friends. At the time he was going to this school, it was wartime, so they were very much sort of planning to all eventually be drafted or join up or whatever. So it very much informed kind of their experience while they were there. Also, there was kind of a dramatic event that occurred with him and his friends while he was at this school. And so this book really kind of focuses on what went down and how that sort of obsession with the war kind of impacted their view of that event. This is a literary novel. It's very well written. I think this was written in maybe the 50s. Is that right? Yeah, this was copywritten in 1959. It definitely, you can tell it was written when it was written. The style of writing from this time period to me tends to feel very impersonal. The characters are tend to be put at a distance, and we're really just sort of observing them and their experience. Writing styles generally just kind of have changed over time, and the goal is to get a little bit more invested. So there was that. This actually kind of reminded me of a cross between Dead Poet Society and The Secret History by Donna Tartt, although just not as personal. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The main reason that I didn't give it a higher rating, though I did really enjoy it, was that it was too quick. I feel like this book actually told a pretty big and important story, but just way too fast. And also I feel like the themes present in this book could have been really just sort of taken to the next level. Conceptually, the story, the way it was told, it was lovely, but it was very like surface level. I just feel like this book could have gone deeper. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Would I recommend it? If you like literary stories and kind of wartime stories, yes, absolutely, I'd recommend it to you. But for me, this was pretty middle of the road, so 3 stars for me for A Separate Peace. All right, next up we have Firebreak by Nicole Corner-Stace. This is a sci-fi novel. This is a dystopian sci-fi novel, and this is set in a sort of futuristic society where the United States has been bought up by corporations, and 2 corporations have prevailed, each of them owning about half of the U.S., and they are at war with each other. And this story is set in a territory that's pretty much right smack dab in the middle. So it is just sort of in a perpetual state of civil war. There are, when this book opens, it's very like gamer, like you're very much immersed in this sort of VR world that has become quite popular. People are hired by these corporations to sort of, do these different tasks within this game. And it's just it starts out as a really fun kind of VR romp. A lot of the characters kind of get sucked into more of like this civil war that's going on via this VR game. It's hard to explain. This is actually a pretty complex story. This book has a really fascinating plot device, something that I've never read in a dystopian novel, and it is like the control of the world through water. I wound up giving this book 3.5 stars. I did really enjoy it. The reason it went from what might have been a 5-star down to a 3.5 star is that the fun sort of VR vibes that it started out with gradually diminished until they basically vanished, and it just became more about like general like corporate warfare, which I'm not terribly excited about. It was also a little bit difficult to understand this world. There were some crucial details I felt like were missing. The world building I felt like was just a little bit limited. You had to use a lot of imagination to kind of get what was going on here. It was okay for me. I don't mind doing that, but I would have preferred just a little bit more detail about this world. This is the first in the series though, so perhaps as the series progresses, this world becomes more clear and more understandable. Nonetheless, 3.5 stars for me. That's a pretty good rating. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it if you like dystopian novels and VR type stuff and like more like warfare driven dystopian novels. I would absolutely recommend this to you. But for me, this was pretty, I would say on the higher end of middle of the road. So 3.5 stars for me for Firebreak. All right, next up we have The Burning Page by Genevieve Cogman. This is the 3rd book in the Invisible Library series. These are portal fantasy, like urban fantasy novels, and they follow the main character. Her name is Irene. She is a librarian in the Invisible Library, which is this kind of weird, mysterious library that is in between realities. This library collects rare editions of novels from all different realities, and Irene's primary job is sort of being sent to retrieve these rare novels. The basic idea of this is that in the prior 2 novels, Irene has kind of gotten in a little bit of trouble. So she's been set on this mission that is not the most enjoyable mission. And so she and her apprentice go into this world to fulfill this task or whatever. In this world, there are 2 sort of perpetually like warring forces, the dragons and the fairies. She tends to get caught in the middle between these groups frequently. This book also has a kind of like almost Voldemort type of character, like a very intensely intense bad guy in it, which is a lot of fun. This is just all around like a fun urban fantasy adventure. I really, really like these books. I've enjoyed these 3 so far. I'm absolutely continuing in the series. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. It wasn't, of the 3, it was probably, I don't think it was my least favorite of the 3 that I've read so far. Just as far as the plot, it wasn't as interesting as the first 2, although I feel like this book did a really good job of world building for the series. It also kind of leaned very heavily into a sort of love triangle that had been started in the previous 2 novels, which I'm usually not a big fan of romance or love triangles, but I am really enjoying this one. Like, I know who I'm rooting for in this triangle, and and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens with that in future novels. I'm also just growing more and more fond of all of these characters. Like, I really like them. I like reading about them, seeing what's going to happen next. If you like portal fantasies, urban fantasy, kind of adventure novels, and you haven't given this series a try, I would highly recommend it. It's been a good one for me. So 3.5 stars for me for The Burning Page. All right, next up we have What We Harvest by Anne Freystadt, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. This is I would call this a kind of a supernatural horror, I guess. Not quite fantasy, but just sort of a supernatural horror. This is about this small community. It feels almost like the Midwest and the U.S., this kind of farming community, a number of farms in this one area. Each of these farms has their own unique miracle crop, so to speak. People travel from all around to come and see these beautiful crops, see this beautiful area. When this novel opens, what we find out is that something has sort of started to take over this land. They call it the Quicksilver Blight, and it is almost this like silver substance that has infected the ground and kind of oozes up and through the crops and through the ground, and it can infect people through direct contact with it. People can leave if they want, as long as they haven't been infected, but otherwise are just kind of corralled into this area to face whatever's going to happen to them. This blight, when the book opens, it has just kind of slowly taken over everything and everyone. There are very few people in this community that haven't been infected by this substance yet. If this follows a couple characters who haven't, and sort of it's them trying to figure out what this is exactly, and if they can do anything about it, what they can do about it. I really, really liked this book. It was very unlike anything that I've ever read before. In fact, because it was so unique to me, I wound up giving this book 4 stars. I really liked it. I liked the characters. I liked the concept. I liked just the overall kind of story arc and where it wound up going. The ending, I think, was pretty good, pretty decent for me. It was really just a book that I thought a lot about when I wasn't reading it. I was thinking about it and kind of curious to find out what would happen next. It wasn't a perfect book for me, but 4 stars is actually pretty good. I liked it. I would recommend it. It's a little bit of a weird book. I don't think that it's for everyone. I think you kind of have to have a taste for a little bit of weird. Otherwise, I don't know if most people would love it, but I did really enjoy it. So yeah, overall, good book. Really liked it. Would recommend it. So 4 stars for me for What We Harvest. All right, and last but not least, we have my favorite book, which was also my selection for the Buzzword Challenge. We've got Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. This is a young adult horror fantasy novel. I never would have thought that I would enjoy this as much as I did, but I absolutely adored this book. This is the story of a character whose sister vanished 1 year prior to where the story opens. There's kind of this like local legend, like folklore legend about a road that appears in the forest. If you like some sort of ritual, if you say these words or whatever it is, that this road will appear and that you walk down it. Within the legend, supposedly some little girl from however many years ago, 50 years ago or whatever it is, went down this road and vanished and no one ever saw her again. So the main character, her sister vanished a year ago because supposedly she opened up this road and went down it looking for the character, or for the girl who had vanished all those many years ago. And subsequently she goes missing as well. This story, it follows this girl and a number of her schoolmates and friends who decide to go looking for the sister. This is a pretty unsettling, pretty spooky novel. Honestly, if you get scared easily, this might scare you. This definitely made me feel pretty uneasy. And this is a very weird book. Like, some incredibly strange stuff happens to these characters. I loved it. Like, this is my kind of book. Some of the things that happen, like, I found myself like flipping around a lot. Like, something would happen that would like make you rethink the event that happened before. So I found myself like flipping back and forth and rereading things and just kind of having my mind blown over and over. This also is not a book that is for everyone. In fact, I doubt that this book is for most people. You have to really like very oddball stories, I think, to really enjoy this. I wound up giving this book 4.5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because the ending, it didn't quite hit the spot for me, but nonetheless, the journey to get there was fun enough for me, enjoyable enough for me, that it definitely warranted 4.5 stars. This type of concept just genuinely really works for me. In fact, if you have read this book and you know of any other books that have the same kind of weirdness to it, please tell me what they are down in the comments. I would love to read more books that are kind of in the same vein as this. This was great. This was so much fun for me. But yeah, if you like anything that I've said, if any of that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend you give it a shot. Just know that it's pretty spooky, pretty weird, and I don't know, it may not be for you, but I absolutely loved Rules for Vanishing. So 4.5 stars for me. All right, so I think that is going to be it for me. These are all of the books that I read in the month of September. I would be very curious to know if you have read any of these and what you thought about them. Also, if you read anything that was particularly enjoyable in the month of September, I would love to hear about that in the comments down below, so I hope that you will chat with me. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like it and possibly subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.